So poor Caleb is sitting here with me all by himself. Say hi, Caleb.
Hi.
Uh, Thanks for being a good sport about this. What I'm going to do is give him the, what do you call this? And I was going to try to do it without these long, awkward pauses. I was going to try to give him these notes real quick so that you all who are either at home or um, maybe even in class can get them. So this is the best I can do. It won't let me do the PowerPoint um, any other way. So with the animation. So sorry about that, but I guess we can just get started here. I wanted to try to review the Northwest Ordinance from yesterday with you all, but I also wanted to try to teach you some new stuff too. So if you bear with me, you'll get to some review, but you'll also get some new stuff. So if you look at the top of your notes, you'll see it says basic rules of thumb. The Constitution involves, and I'd like you to write in there, structure of government. The Bill of Rights involves protection of liberties, individual liberties. Those are the two main differences between them. Constitution, structure of government. So what I want you to think of here for this is kind of like a building. And you know how a building has a foundation, and then if you're building a house, you put the frame around it, the wooden timber frame. Um, that's kind of like what the Constitution does. It kind of builds the government. And so I'm going to draw pictures with you that will kind of show you that. So let's go, and then of course, Bill of Rights, and I'm going to give you a way to categorize the rights. So again, basic ideas. Constitution involves structure of government. Bill of Rights involves individual liberties. So here are the main definitions of the different types of structures of government that I think are important for you to know for the end of course exam. One structure type is separation of powers. You've heard of separation of powers, you know what it means, but if you don't have a good dictionary definition, then here it is: dividing government between government power between the three branches. Now, I'm going to try to draw on here. I might have to pen. Now, let's see if it will draw. It will not draw on here, so that's unfortunate. Mr. Beavers will pause the video and will draw for you. So there's that. So yeah, the drawing will come here in just a second. Just go to checks and balances. This is another structure. Each branch can block the actions taken by other branches. And again, Mr. Beavers will probably pause the video at this point and try to draw this on the board with you so that you can see what he means by that. Essentially, though, what we're talking about here between separation of powers and checks and balances is that we don't trust one person to have all government power. We don't trust the federal government, like a king, one person in the federal government to have the power to make laws and that same person to be able to enforce them and to be the judge and the jury. We want power to be divided up because we don't trust people. And power is divided up even further in federalism. Not only does the federal government have separation of powers and checks and balances, but we also have government power divided between the federal level and states. And Mr. Beavers should be pausing the video in a second so that you all can see a drawing that you can put right in here. And then the last government structure we have is bicameralism. Bi, of course, means two. Cam means houses. I think this is Latin. No, Greek. Anyway, the point is two houses. Our Congress, our legislature has two different houses. And Mr. Beavers will pause the video to draw here for you so that you can see power being divided up even further, and it starts to get crazy. But again, we do that because we don't trust people to have one person to have all the power. So again, this is about government structure. And if you look at your drawings, you'll be able to see it kind of looks like the blueprints of a house, kind of. Then we get to the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights are about rights. Something to add here, though, so that you can understand a distinction in the rights, is that there are some rights that the government shouldn't be able to take ever. And then there's also due process. Let me get to that in a second. Governments should never be able to take the following things. The First Amendment says we should have the freedom of speech and the freedom of press, the freedom of assembly, the freedom of petition, that we should be able to worship however we want to worship. We should be able to tell the government what we want to tell the government, that we should be able to write about the government what we want to write, that we should be able to peacefully assemble outdoors or indoors, and we should be able to write to the government and ask for them to correct problems. That we should have, the Second Amendment, the right to protect ourselves. And the government shouldn't be able to take that away. We shouldn't have to, like the Americans had to during the American Revolution, to house soldiers in our houses. So these are rights that the government shouldn't be able to remove. Individual freedoms that we should all have. Now, due process do protect rights, or due process does protect rights, but sorry, I haven't looked in the camera yet. Right. Have you been noticing that I've been wearing my glasses the last few days more? It's because I don't want to wear my contacts in the morning, but my breath still fogs up my glasses, which is probably going to make me go back to my contacts. Anywho, due process means if the federal government wants to convict you of a crime, they can't just throw you in jail and that's it. There has to be a process. There has to be, like, you have to be charged, and you have to have a lawyer. You have to have a trial with a jury of your peers, et cetera, et cetera. If they ever want to take anything from you, they have to go through a process. If they want to take away your life, they have to go through a process. It has to be fair, and it has to be equitable, and nothing should be unreasonable. There has to be a process, right? So some of the things that we thought was important was, if the government thinks you have something that you shouldn't have, that they shouldn't be able to just come into your house and look. That either you need a warrant, or there needs to be probable cause. There should be no unreasonable searches and seizures. In fact, Amendment 5 talks about due process specifically, that there should be a process and it shouldn't be taken away if you're ever accused of a crime. And if the government ever takes away your land, for those of you who are a little bit nerdy, this is called just compensation, this is called eminent domain. If you want to remember that, that's great. If not, then just understand that the government can sometimes take away your land. They can actually take away a plot of your land, a part of the property you live on, in order to, like, build a road or something like that. But they have to pay you fairly for it. If you ever get accused of a crime, you have to have a lawyer. You at least have a right to have a lawyer. You have to be able to confront your accuser. They just can't hide in the shadows. There are exceptions to that, but for the most part, you should be able to confront your accuser. And the trial should be public. It should be speedy. Public means they can't, like, hide you in a back room and, like, torture you while you're being on trial. It needs to be public where everybody can see it, and it needs to be speedy. They can't draw it out forever and ever and ever. You have a right to a jury. And if you do get convicted, they shouldn't be able to draw and quarter you, for example. Drawing and quartering was a way of punishing someone in the Middle Ages, where they would tie your arms and your legs to different horses. So one arm would be tied to one horse, another arm would be tied to another horse, Legs, same thing. And then they would make all four horses gallop in different directions. Yeah, that would hurt. Like, yeah, we can't do that, right? No cruel and unusual punishments, and no excessive bails or fines. In other words, there are freedoms that should be protected. That's this category right here. And then there are some freedoms that have to do with due process. If you get convicted of a crime or accused of a crime, you should be able to have a process that has to be gone
Pardon
through.
interruption. At this time, we will be practicing our lockdown drill. Teachers, if you would, please use your emergency binders and review all the procedures with regards to a lockdown. We will be sounding the alarm. One of the main goals of this first lockdown drill each year is to make sure that everyone can distinguish between the lockdown alarm and the fire drill alarm, which you will hear later on this afternoon. So here in about 30 seconds, I'll be sounding the lockdown alarm. If you would, please make sure that you use your door locks, your safety locks, and discuss all the procedures within and around your areas. Thank you.
Have Mr. Beavers explain all of these things that are on the screen right now. But basically, this is how Mr. Beavers is trying to connect the Northwest Ordinance to Constitution and Bill of Rights. Okay. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. And stop.